Are you confident? Do you have consistency? How much conviction do you have? I'm Daniel Gomez, the Confidence Architect, a business strategist, keynote speaker, executive coach, and best-selling author. On the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we will help you unlock confidence to create consistency and develop conviction. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence. Welcome back to another episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, where we motivate you, we inspire you. And today, boy, do we have some extra inspiration for you. I have an amazing guest. I met this gentleman in Puerto Rico at an event, and his story just touched my heart so much that I was in tears. And I said, man, Sean, I got to get you on my show because I believe that my audience needs your voice right now, needs your story. And so many times we undervalue our story. So get out your pen and paper ahead of time, because I'll tell you what, Sean Swarner, his story is going to electrify you. He's going to drop so much wisdom and nuggets on the show. I want you to get out your pen and paper ahead of time, because what you write down, you retain over 50% of the information. So welcome to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. Sean, how you doing, my brother?
I'm doing great, man. I was sitting there thinking, man, who's he talking about? And then I heard my name. I was like, wow, I guess that is me. Appreciate it.
That's you, man. I tell you what, I had the great pleasure of meeting you, the beautiful human being you are. Can you do me a favor and introduce yourself to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show?
Absolutely. I'm Sean Swarner. I like long walks on the beach, picnics in the park, little puppies. Is that the intro you want? Or you looking more for the I'm the only person in history to climb Mount Everest, the highest mountain on every continent. I've skied to both the North and South Poles, and I've completed the World Championship Ironman triathlon in Hawaii. But I did it after surviving 2 terminal cancers, a prognosis of 3 months to live when I was 13, and then 14 days to live when I was 17, 18. I was in a medically induced coma for a year of my life. I was read my last rites, and I did all that with only one functioning lung.
One functioning lung. You know, when I came back from Puerto Rico after meeting you, I sat there at the airport. I did a live video, and I said, what excuse do you have, ladies and gentlemen? We have 2 lungs. We're able to walk. I said, I just met a man that has 1 lung. I want the audience to get this. You heard Sean right. He has 1 lung, and this man climbed Mount Everest and did all these other great feats in life. Sean, I don't even know where to start, man. Just the thought of having the regular human being makes excuses with having 2 lungs. Where in the heck did you get this determination to climb Mount Everest with 1 lung? And would you say you were 13 when you were diagnosed with terminal cancer? You were pretty much written off. Is that what I heard you say at the introduction?
Absolutely, yeah. The first one was Hodgkin's lymphoma, advanced stage 4 Hodgkin's, and as we know in the cancer world, there are 4 stages. The fifth stage is well, whatever you believe in, the great upstairs, the great unknown. Hopefully, people aren't going to the other place, but that's it. Just 4 stages. So I was diagnosed in the advanced stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma as a 13-year-old. So when my friends were out, chasing girls, collecting baseball cards, worrying about being cool, being in the right cliques, being popular, I was literally fighting for my life, being terrified every night to close my eyes because I didn't know if they're going to open the next morning or not.
Ladies and
So
gentlemen, think about what Sean's saying. You were scared to go to sleep, man? Like, really?
terrified. I mean, think about it. Let's say you're diagnosed with a type of cancer. We'll even go to the second one, Askins sarcoma, right? Very, very rare cancer. It affects 3 out of a million people with a prognosis of 6%. So out of 100 people, bearing in mind that 3 out of a million get this, let's say 100 people get it, 6 survive. And then you add on top of that, no one's ever had Askins with Hodgkin's. I'm the only person in the world to have ever had those. So surviving both is equivalent to winning the lottery 4 times in a row with the same numbers, right? So it's
Wow.
impossible. I'm a living, breathing, walking miracle. But going back to it, imagine you're sitting there, you're laying in the hospital bed, a man of the cloth comes in and literally starts reading you your last rites while you're still alive, kind of fading in and out of consciousness. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, what's tomorrow hold? I don't know. Today and right now is the only moment I have. So you become terrified. You become mortified of falling asleep.
My wife was diagnosed with breast cancer 5 years ago in 2017. That's how my whole journey as a keynote speaker in the world that I live now in personal development and just being a corporate trainer. But she was stage 3, and I can't imagine, because we were terrified, right? I don't know if it was the same level of terrified where you're at, but I understand what you're saying to an extent, because we had 2 kids. They were young. And something that I thought to myself, Sean, was how in the hell am I going to raise my 2 kids without my wife? Like that's what kind of what came to me. And I remember just getting to my knees and asking God to help us, man. Because I said, I don't know what to do. At that moment in life, Sean, I know you were 13, but I was 44 when my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. Your title, the amount of money you have in your bank, where you live, all that crap's irrelevant. But that was me being 44. What was going on in your mind? I mean, at my age, I had to go back to really God and humble myself and ask him, Lord, like, what do I need to change for my wife to live? What help us, right? Help us. What goes on? What was going on in your mind as a 13-year-old? Because that's a huge 31-year difference.
Well, it's interesting. When I was first diagnosed, they thought it was pneumonia, because I grew up in a super small town in Ohio. It was just a farming community, and initially I was loving it, man. I'll be honest with you. I got the attention. The cheerleaders came in. They brought me balloons. I was like, this is great. I'm digging all this attention. But then they took me from Willard to Columbus, Ohio, where they started doing the tests, and that's when they diagnosed me with the disease. But I think it was a blessing that my parents didn't tell me initially that it was cancer. They didn't say, "Hey, Sean, you have cancer." They told me, "Hey, you have something. You're sick, but we're going to do everything we possibly can to get over it." And looking at how they told me, I think, was one of the keys, because it didn't instantly hit my brain, "Oh God, I have cancer. Oh, what's going to happen?" That
Yeah.
didn't hit my mind. It was, "Hey, I have something. We're going to do everything we possibly can to get over it. And oh, by the way, it's cancer." So I looked at it from a different perspective, but also at the same time, looking back at it, you're right. I was 13. My parents were probably in their mid 40s, like you were when your wife got it. And I'll be honest, I bet you it was probably worse for them than it was for me, because at 13, 17 was different, but at 13, I was so young, I didn't really understand the ramifications of what cancer meant. I didn't know what death truly meant. I had a different perspective on this. So for me, it became my new normal. I was hanging out with the nurses, the doctors. They became my family, my support system. I was probably the only kid who wanted to be in school as opposed to avoiding school, like trying to get away. I just wanted to be back with my friends. The only thing in my mind was, "Hey, I just want to be normal again."
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because I truly believe right now in this season of life that we're in right now in our country in America, that there's a lot of people that are hopeless. And that word you said, terrified. There's a lot of people that are terrified, because there's definitely, interest rates have been going up, and I don't want to definitely get into the politics of it. But the thing is, this is that people are scared. They need something to hold on to. What was it for you at that age of 13 being terrified? What shifted for you, and take us on this journey as you're becoming the new Sean, right? The Sean Swarner that is going to conquer Mount Everest, as because you shared I mean, some of your wisdom that you shared at when I met you at the event. It was powerful. What shifted? And someone right now is listening to this podcast. Maybe they got laid off because of the economy. Maybe they're freaking out because they wanted to buy a house and interest rates skyrocket. Whatever it is that's terrifying them, talk to us about what shifted inside of you, and how can someone have that same shift within themselves?
Absolutely. I think the biggest reality that I came to face with was I couldn't choose the situation I was in. I couldn't change the fact that I had cancer. That was a fact. But in that same vein, I could say that I had cancer. Cancer didn't have me. So because I couldn't choose the situation I was in, I decided to choose how I looked at that situation. I wanted to choose the perspective that I had on what was going on with me. So a perfect example was one morning when I did wake up. Um, I remember sitting on the side of my bed, and off to my left side, I remember seeing my pillowcase just absolutely covered in hair. And because about 3 months into the chemo, and I remember running into the bathroom and staring myself in the mirror, thinking, man, maybe I could fix it. Maybe I could stop it from falling out. This can't be happening. And also, while I was looking at myself in the mirror, yeah, I was 60 pounds overweight. I was swollen from head to toe. I didn't even recognize myself.
Wow.
There was nothing left. There was no fight left. There was no Sean Swarner left, because I had been an athlete for years leading up to that. And who I was looking at in the mirror wasn't me. And I kind of waddled into the shower. I turned it on, and I remember collapsing to my hands and knees and just sobbing, just absolutely weeping, just in tears, bawling my eyes out. The whole time the water is also filling up in the shower because my hair is clumping up in the drain. So I had to scoop the hair out of the drain to let the water down while I was on my hands and knees, sobbing and weeping. And it just dawned on me that I didn't want to focus on not dying. I wanted to focus on living. So just that shift in perspective, that shift in how I saw what was happening to me, I realized I had a choice. It wasn't fight for my life or give up and die. It was focusing on living. I mean, how many entrepreneurs get into business thinking, oh, I don't want to lose money? No, no one. If they do, they're probably going to lose money, because whatever your attention is on is what's going to happen. So I
So
didn't want to
good.
focus on
Yes.
not dying. I wanted to focus on living. And I think that was the paradigm shift that I had when I was at 13.
That's so
So,
powerful.
yeah. And if you can focus on what you want, not the avoidance of what you don't, you're going to see things from a completely different perspective. And you have that choice every morning you open your eyes.
So would you say in that moment, after you got out of the shower, the conversation that Sean Swarner was having with himself is, I don't want to die, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. That wasn't the conversation you were focused on, man. I'm living. I want to live. And that was a perspective that changed everything for you. Because I think so many people, I love what you're saying, because I think so many people, to your point exactly, entrepreneurs say, right, business is slow, I don't want to lose money, I can't afford it. And the more people say they can't afford something, guess what? They're never going to afford it. The more they say, I don't want to lose money, guess what they're going to lose?
Exactly.
Money.
Exactly. And I think when I stepped out of there, it was also a deeper reason. So if you can tap into your what I call your personal core values, and understand that they become your compass, they're your moral compass guiding you through life. So looking back at that frail ogre of a child who was 60 pounds overweight, bald from head to toe, stepping out of the shower, I think also what went through my mind was I was terrified to die, not because I was afraid of dying, but I couldn't even imagine what my parents would do mourning the loss of their firstborn son.
You know, you said something interesting. I want to definitely address that, but you saw yourself as an ogre. That's not a kind word, right? I think people see themselves as ogres right now, as not beautiful, as not loving themselves. How did you learn to love yourself in that moment when you looked in the mirror and that's what you felt, like an ogre? How did you love yourself? Because I think people right now, if they were to love themselves more in this season that we're in, their life would just have a better outcome. And the fact that they don't love themselves and you loved yourself, from what you're saying, being an ogre, how did you do that, man?
You know, it was not worrying about what others thought of me, but worrying about what I thought of myself. And it boggles my mind how many people who are out there are more concerned about what others think of them than what they think of themselves. So when I started focusing on what meant most to me at that time, it was survival. I didn't listen to the people who called me an ogre. When I looked at myself in the mirror, yes, I saw an ogre, but I also realized I wasn't going to listen to the noise outside of my head. I was going to listen to what mattered most to me. So even though I looked in my mind like an ogre, I looked awful, I felt awful. Past those eyeballs, the windows to the soul, I found who I truly was. And that's what I tapped into, not the physical aspect of it, because I knew that was going to be that was going to change, because I had a choice on working out when I felt well, eating healthy. Obviously the medicine ballooned me up. Prednisone, which is a steroid, just made my whole body swell up beyond recognition. But it made me look beyond the superficial. Like most kids, when you're teenagers, you're looking at that. You see the beauty of someone on the outside, not the inside. But when I started looking past that to who I really was, and I sat down and I stared myself in the mirror and I started asking myself those deeper questions, that's when I fell in love with who I was, not how I looked.
I love that. So, ladies and gentlemen, think about what Sean's saying right now. What do you need to tune out today? What do you need to tune out of your head right now? What is taking up space in your head right now that you don't even realize that you've given it residency in your mind because you're more worried about what they're saying instead of what you're saying in the mirror? What is that? Sean, let me ask you this. As our audience is pondering the question I just asked them, what are 2 or 3 steps that someone can take to tune out the noise, to really start focusing on bettering themselves? Maybe somebody's listening to this and they have a loved one that's going through cancer. Maybe somebody's going through lupus or some type of disease, or maybe they're just down on their luck right now. What are 2 or 3 steps that they can do to tune out the noise and build that resilient mindset that you started building as you were dealing with this as a young teenager?
The first step, without even moving on to anything else, because you can't go where you want to go or where you think you want to go without knowing where you are. Right? Like when I climbed Mount Everest, I had to get to base camp first, then the next step, then the next step, then the next step, then camp 1, camp 2, camp 3, then for the summit. Yes, in my mind, I was already there. I'm a full believer in vivid visualization. But step 1 is you have to understand what you value most. Write down, and if anybody's interested, email me or get in touch with you. I created my own value list. There's a list of 50 different values. It took me forever to put it together, but there are 50 different values. What I do is every 3 weeks, I take 10 of them, and then I rate myself how I'm actually living that value. Not just, hey, this is what I value, not love, appreciation, freedom, security, things like that. Family, fitness. Those are great to have them and know what they are, but take it a step further and rate on a scale of 1 to 10 how you're actually living that value. Now you see, let's say I value family that's as one of my personal core values, and I write down that and you have to be honest with yourself. Otherwise you're just fooling yourself. And I wrote down that I'm living it at a 6 out of 10. I now see where I need to start focusing my attention and energy. So once I know where I'm lacking, I can build it up. So that way I'm more focused on what matters most to me, as opposed to someone else telling me what I should value.
Because most people don't even realize what they don't even know what they value. I mean, if we're
Yeah.
gonna be honest about it, you ask, something that I do when I do my business coaching. I'm like, okay, well, what are your core values? They're like, well, what do you mean? I go, yeah. What are your 6 top core values? Like, what are you gonna when you have 100 employees and you're not around, and your leader that's there in charge, your right, your strong second or one of your other managers have to make a decision. They should be making them based on your core values. What are they? Over 90% of them don't even have that where it's visible to their employees, and they wonder why their employees are not in sync with them.
Well, it's just like a business. You have a business plan to be successful, making money, to build your company. Why don't you know what you value as a person to build what's even more important than your business? Yourself, you.
I got to be honest with you. I've never done what you're doing, what you're saying, the top 50. Definitely, we'll get the link to your website to download that. We'll get all your information here for our show. But the way you're saying it, right? I've never been that depth in it, but I think it'd be great And you're right, because one thing that changed for me, I never forget, after a year in business, God said, dude, are you tired of like being busy doing nothing? And in my own mind, I'm like, what are you talking about? We made some money. Like our first year, we made a profit. He goes, yeah, but you're busy going in circles, Daniel.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, my bank account says different, right? I'm over here like trying to step up to God, like, shut up, Daniel. And he goes, you're busy going in circles, son. He goes, you really want your business to grow? I was like, well, of course. He goes, and then you need to step down and I'm going to be the CEO. And the best decision I ever made was really, as a core value, I made God my CEO of my business. So when I
Mm.
put God as the head of my business, then family, and then the business, like those are the values that I'm going to live in business, we exploded. Because I realized in that moment that business is very important, but when you honor God, God will give you the business ideas, and then you definitely honor your family, your wife, your children. God will honor you even more. And I think so many people, they don't even know what the word honor means, right? And I would say maybe one of the core values as we're talking, they need to know what the word honor, like, dude, like you touch my heart in Puerto Rico. Like, how can I honor this guy, right? He's already climbed Mount Everest. He's already has all these sponsorships. But if I can have your story impact one other person, like, dude, I want to honor you in some way I can. This is what I best. So let me ask you this: you're going through your journey. At what point did you lose your other lung? Like, how was at this point when you're here, you make up the decision, I want to live. At that point, had you had your surgery to remove your lung, or that operation hadn't happened yet?
So, dude, I was, excuse me, I was completely in remission from the first cancer, right? We say it's NED, no evidence of disease, right? So I was completely done with that. I was going back to being a normal kid. And I was going in for a checkup for the first cancer when they found a second cancer. And that's in one day, they found a tumor on an x-ray on my right lung, roughly the size of a golf ball. They did a needle biopsy. They took out a lymph node from my left neck. They put in a Hickman catheter, which is like a permanent IV. They snapped open my ribs on my right side, removed the tumor, sewed me back up, put a drainage tube in, and started chemotherapy. Like that. And that happened in less than 24 hours. And what happened after that was I went through 3 months of intense chemo, 1 month of intense radiation therapy, and then 10 more months of chemo. And when I was in for the radiation therapy, there was such a bombardment of gamma going through my chest. Now there's so much scar tissue from that. I have both my lungs, but there's just no oxygen transfer because there's so much scar tissue. And every time I was in for the treatments, the 3 months of chemo and the 10 months of chemo after, that's when the doctors put me in a medically induced coma because the treatments were so harsh. So aside from that 1 month of radiation, that was, as alcoholics would say, that was my moment of clarity. That 1 month,
Yeah.
I don't remember being 16 years old.
Wow. And radiation is no joke. I remember my wife. I mean, she still has a. It literally toasts your skin. It like it fries it. It's not something that anybody wants to go through, man. And so you wake up from this coma, you realize that, okay, I'm alive. When did the Sean Swarner that we know today come out that says, you know what, I'm gonna take this based on that decision that I made, crying out, weeping as a kid, that I'm gonna live, I'm not gonna focus on dying. When did you say, I'm gonna take this to another level and I'm gonna go conquer these mountains? When did that idea start to arise in your heart and your mind and say, I'm not gonna play the victim, I'm gonna be the victor? Because I think so many times, think about what Sean just said. And I understand exactly what you said, because this is what happened. When my wife had her double mastectomy, we went back the following week for her follow-up. And you can tell, right? I mean, I read people pretty good. I was like, what's wrong, doc? He's like, nothing. Why? I was like, no, you're not being honest. What's going on? Well, Mr. Miss Gomez, like, right, like we got all the breast cancer and they give you this lolly lolly story. And I'm like, okay, but where's the but? Well, there's skin cancer on her breast now, right? On the skin. And man, it's like we got punched in the gut even harder because, right, she just went through the double mastectomy, going back to the doctor for a follow-up, hoping that everything was going to be great, which we really believed in that. And it's like the life was sucked out of us. So I know exactly at that moment, I would never forget. And I called a friend of mine, I said, dude, like, I don't know what to do, man. I said, he goes, Daniel, it's Christmas time. He goes, just go watch a movie, man. Go have a good time. And I never forget my wife. We ended up going to the movies and we saw this comedy because I knew we needed to laugh. And I said, here, get a margarita. And my wife goes, well, I can't because I'm taking this medicine. I said, honey, well, shit, if you die tonight anyways, it doesn't matter what the without the medicine. You drink the damn margarita. What does it matter? But like I can laugh at it now, but it was, I mean, I was being honest, right? Like, you know what? Just we have today, tomorrow's not promised, and let's just. But I really believe what comes back to me right now is people don't realize how comedy, just laughing, trying to keep your spirits up was so powerful, and we laughed like crazy, right? We think we had like 2 margaritas at dinner that night in the movie theater, and we watched some Christmas movie, it was just hilarious, and we felt better. And you know, I'm listening to you and you're bringing back this memory in me, and it's just like sometimes we forget how far God's brought us, man.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I heard and saw you getting emotional. It's anything like this. Oftentimes, it's not easy to talk about. You know, it's not easy to bare your soul and be emotional. You know, I cover a lot of things up with humor. You know, you do the same thing. It's a defense mechanism. You know, in all honesty, but it works. You know, it gets the endorphins going. It helps, even if you're crying and laughing at the same time. You know that's the best way to make it happen. You know, because for me that brought back a memory too. My when COVID hit a couple years ago, my grandma turned 98 in October. She turned 100 years old, right? And she lives in Tampa. I live in the Denver area. And we didn't want to fly down there because we didn't want to potentially get her sick. And I won't get into what people believe or think about COVID, but a 98-year-old, you don't want her getting sick no matter what. So we rented an RV. My wife and I rented an RV and we drove across the country. And right before we left, my wife convinced me to go get the spot checked out on my back, right at the dermatologist. And I'm at the dermatologist. They do a surgery, they cut it out. And they send it in, you know, to check it to get it checked. And we're driving through the middle of, I want to say, Missouri or Oklahoma. Phone call rings. My wife's driving the RV. I go in the back where the bed is. I'm on the phone and I'm listening to the doctor. And she's like, "Yeah, Sean, you know, I'm sorry, but it is cancer again." And then we lost a signal. I was like, "What? Dude, you can't do that." The signal dropped. It was like another hour before we got service back. And like she left a message saying that it was if it was the skin cancer you wanted, this was the one to get. So when I got back, you know, they cut it out. So technically I've had 3 different types of cancers. And looking at what you and your wife went through, it's something no one wants to go through. You know, it is so emotional. You're like, I just got over another one. I just got over this. Like, what's going on? You look up and you're like, what's going on, dude? Like, come on, man. You know, but it is emotional. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with that. Just letting it out and letting it go. I mean, human beings are human beings, not human doings. You know, be
Yeah.
emotional. It separates us from other animals.
Well, you know, as we're talking, what comes to mind is that sometimes we try, I think, so hard to be perfect, and we try so hard to be this poster boy or poster girl because we see all the stuff on social media. And the truth is, if you really look behind the scenes, mostly everybody doesn't have their stuff together. There comes a season in life where you're gonna need God, because God's gonna allow that season to happen because right, we were created for His glory. I truly believe that. And it's okay to cry. It's okay not to feel scared. I think so many times people they want to feel invincible, and yeah, you want to go out there and conquer Mount Everest and like you did and be a badass. But there's times when you're like, man, I just want to be a kid and cry out to God and say, God, help me, because I don't have the answer. And I think that's okay. And that's what I loved about you. You were just totally transparent when I met you in Puerto Rico, and you just shared your heart, man. And you're just the things you overcame as a youth. And if there was a word of wisdom that you would give to our audience, what would that word of wisdom be, Sean?
Wow. You know, it's funny. You say word of wisdom. I'm thinking of one word. I know you probably mean like a phrase or a sentence, but I'm just going to say faith. Faith not only in God, but also faith in yourself too. You know, he gave you a brain to think. He gave you emotions to feel. He gave you all these things, and you just need to believe in yourself because he does.
Yeah. How does somebody build that faith? How does somebody go from thinking about, I know you said there's steps, right? But how what even crossed your mind when you said, I'm gonna go to the top 7 mountains in the world, I'm gonna climb all of them. And like the average person doesn't think that way. I'm like, dude, where did you where did this thought process even come to have the faith in God and have the faith in your abilities through God, the faith in yourself to go out there and do this? Because I'll tell you what, there's a rock called Enchanted Rock here about an hour and a half away from me, and I'll go hiking there sometimes. And let me tell you, just hiking the Mount Everest, man, I mean, hiking the Enchanted Rock. I can't imagine hiking Mount Everest. You get winded. Let me tell you, pretty quick.
It's just like anything, man. You develop a set pattern and you start with small steps. So if you're going to train for the New York City Marathon, right, you're not going to hop in the pool and swim laps until your arms fall off. You're going to go hit the pavement, but you're not going to hit the pavement running 26 miles tomorrow. You start with running around the block, then you build up to maybe a mile, then 2 miles, then 5 miles, then 10 miles, and then 13 miles, or whatever that set pattern is that you put together, whatever that plan is. But also, the biggest key is knowing and believing that what you're attempting is possible. There's a great quote by Nelson Mandela. It's on my business cards. It says, "It always seems impossible until it's done." And it's so true, because so many people think, well, it's physiologically impossible to climb Everest with half your lung capacity. Well, it's not anymore.
Yeah.
In my mind, I visualize myself taking those last 3 or 4 steps day in, day out while I was training for 9 months. So every single day for 9 months before I went to bed, I pictured myself taking those last steps from the first person point of view, utilizing my other senses. So I would smell the ozone, I would hear the styrofoam crunching of the snow under my feet, I would feel the radiation of the sun on my face, but then taking it one step further, just like the personal core values, and rate yourself, taking it one step further with the vivid visualization. This is the disconnect that most people don't do. When you accomplish that goal, because it's never about the new car, it's never about the raise, it's never about the new house, it's what it represents and what it means to you. So when I made it to the summit of Mount Everest, in my mind, how did that make me feel? Those emotions make it real. Tapping into the 5 senses that we have, the physiological senses, and then tapping into the emotions, that's what made it real. And then working backwards to find out how to get there. That's how I get there.
You said this word a couple of times already. So give us your definition, because I definitely believe in visualization, but you use the word vivid visualization. You said that like 2 or 3 times already. What is vivid for the listener and people watching us on the different channels? What is vivid visualization to Sean Warner?
Well, a lot of people do quote unquote visualization, and it could be meditation, prayer, whatever. That's visualization. Vivid visualization is when you utilize all 5 senses. So in your mind, you're making it real, because the mind doesn't know the difference between vivid visualization and reality. So when I was coming up to those last 4 or 5 steps on the summit of Everest, dude, it was almost like deja vu. Like I've been here hundreds of times. Like this is awesome. This is fantastic. And then the waterworks set in. That was one thing I didn't picture in my visualization, but vivid visualization is when you tap into and you see it essentially it's like, let me back up. It's like taking a black and white movie and turning it into vivid Technicolor.
That again?
It's like taking a black and white movie and turning it into vivid Technicolor. So in your mind, you're seeing everything, you're smelling everything. In your mind, it's real. You are there. So to do that, you have to put yourself in a state of deep relaxation, which I do every night. And then you look around, like, who's with you? What are they wearing? What are the smells? So if you're picturing yourself, or if you want to say a 50-foot solar yacht, whatever, And I don't know why that came to mind. Maybe that's something I
I want
want.
a 90-foot one, so keep talking. You're talking to
There
me
you go.
now.
All right. So
So in my mind, I have a 90-foot silver yacht named Jesus is King.
there you go. So when you're picturing that every night, picture yourself from for your first person point of view, walking down the yacht. What do you smell? Do you smell the salt? Do you smell the ocean? Is it in a fresh lake? When you're looking at the boat, who's with you? What color is it? What are you wearing? What's your wife wearing? Is she wearing a hat? Are you wearing sunglasses? What do you hear? Do you hear this? Do you hear the seagull? Do you hear the water lapping up against the boat? What is it? But then getting deeper, how does it feel stepping on the boat? Are you proud? Are you happy? What does that represent? Does it represent success? Does it represent appreciation? Does it represent the freedom now that you can go explore the ocean? So tapping into each one of those specifics makes it real in your mind before you even take your first step.
Wow, that's powerful. I love that. I'm gonna start practicing that even more. Smelling and so you said something a little while ago, and I caught it. So something that Sean didn't think about, was it that you were so happy when you were there, you cried, and then your tears froze up? Is that what happened to your glasses? I remember you shared part of that story with us, right? Was it that you were crying and because you were in right? Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. He's on Mount Everest. It's so freaking cold that when you cry, your tears literally freeze up. Wasn't it something like that? Or tell us that part. I don't want to misquote you or anything, but I remember something to that extent.
Yeah, absolutely, man. When it's that cold, when the wind's blowing, and let's say, it also happened at the North Pole when I made it to the North Pole. But the first time it happened was I was going up for this during summit night. We left the last Camp 4, at about 10 p.m. And we climbed through the night wearing our headlamps, and we hit this ridge line that was it's called the Summit Ridge, creatively named, right? And off to the right side, about 5 feet, it fell down 2 miles straight into Tibet. Right. And off to the left, about the same distance, 5 steps over, it fell down 1.5 miles into Nepal. And off to my right side, I could see the sun was coming up. It was an incredible sunrise, the most beautiful I've ever seen in my life. It was orange, pink, red, purple, blue, yellow, unbelievable. And I could see a sea of clouds, and then it was like mountain peaks as islands, right? And even from that altitude, when you look out, the horizon's not flat. It's curved. So I could see the curvature of the earth. And then I looked off to my left side because it was still dark over there, and there was nothing in the way because of how high I was in altitude. Straight out at eye level were stars. So stars at eye level on my left side, the sunrise on my right side. And that's when I started tearing up, because I knew in my mind, my vivid visualization was coming true. I knew I was going to make it. Tears started coming down. The glasses from the inside froze. The tears were freezing on my cheeks as they were coming down. I had to pick my tears off my cheeks. It was unbelievable.
What an experience, man. That's epic. Who would have thought? I mean, I wouldn't have thought of that, to be honest with you. Like my tears are gonna freeze, man. Sean, you're such an inspiration, man. I really just want to thank you for being with us here. And let me ask you this: is what's a quote or a scripture that you rely on during your times of adversity? What's a quote or a scripture that you rely on when things come and they just kind of overwhelm you, if they do?
Well, they do. They do. Like you said, on social media, you really don't get a good grasp of everybody, of what they're really like. And the same thing with myself or anyone else who seems like they've accomplished a lot. Their doubt always sits in. Everybody doesn't constantly have a good day every single day, because without the bad days, you wouldn't appreciate the good ones. So for me, whenever I'm up climbing, and I take a group up Kilimanjaro every year as a fundraiser. This July, I'd be up there. This will be my 24th time, with double the mountain success rate. And I help people with a couple of different things. And going up Everest is where it started. Every step I took, I had a mantra that said, with one leg, I would say, the higher I go. With the other leg, I would say, the stronger I get. The higher I go, the stronger I get. The higher I go, the stronger I get. So over and over and over again, that would be a mantra that I had. But looking at, you might appreciate this, essentially knowing and believing that I can do all things through him who strengthens me.
Powerful, man. I love you, brother, man. You just, I could stay here and talk to you forever. And How does somebody get a hold of Sean Swarner if they want to connect with you, brother?
That's easy. SeanSwarner.com, just like Sean Connery, the proper way of spelling Sean.
That's S-E-A-N. That's
Right.
S-E-A-N, ladies and gentlemen, not the other Sean. S-E-A-N, the proper way.
Yeah, the proper way. And then Swarner, just like the Warner Brothers, but slap an S on the front. SeanSwarner.com.
And we'll definitely have all his information on our show notes and on our website. So definitely can go there and get the links for Sean to connect with them. And, think about what Sean talked about today, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe you need to tell yourself a mantra. Maybe you need to tell yourself that, right? The higher I go, the stronger I get. The higher I go, the stronger I get. Maybe for you, it's really when you're on your hands and knees, stop focusing on the fact that that you're dying. Focus on the fact that I want to live. So start talking about life instead of death. The word of God says the power in death is in the power of the tongue. And Sean chose that morning to speak life over himself. Or maybe it's you need to start practicing vivid visualization. Whatever it is for you, I want you to go back and listen to this episode again and really take notes at a deeper level. And you're going to realize, like, wow, I didn't even realize Sean said this the first time around. That's where the breakthrough happens for you, because Sean just dropped some massive wisdom. I'm honored to call you a friend, Sean. I'm honored to call you a brother. And I would even, man, if you're available September 8th and 9th, I would love to have you come to Sticker Shock and share your story and inspire the audience and just really, man, just you're just a beautiful person. You talk about adversity, you talk about overcoming, you talk about using your faith and having faith in God and yourself. When I met you, it's like, what excuse did I have? And I don't think I still understand the extent to what you touched my heart, but just know that you had me in tears that day when I heard you speak, and I want to just thank you for honoring us with your presence here on our show, and thank you for being here with us, brother.
That means a lot. I mean, I'm very grateful for your friendship and super grateful that we met. And it's interesting how a lot of people, when I do give keynote talks, they come up and they're like, they usually have one of two reactions. One, they're like, wow, I feel like a pile of crap right now. I haven't accomplished anything in my life. Or, man, you've really inspired me. And my response to them is always, not everyone's going to climb Everest, but everyone has an Everest to climb. Your Everest might be finding the motivation to get off the couch and walk around the block to exercise. Whatever it might be, just hold on to what you value most. Find that passion, find that purpose, find that meaning to get yourself not just motivated and inspired, but empowered to move forward one step at a time. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here, Daniel. Thank you so much, man.
Man, I love you, brother. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for this week's episode. I'll tell you what, I'm truly touched, honored, and we'll be back next week with another amazing guest. Remember, if you're stuck in life, if you're stuck in business, go to DanielGomezGlobal.com. That's DanielGomezGlobal.com. Do our entrepreneurs assessment there. And go to our website, themakingsofaMillionaireMind.com. That's themakingsofaMillionaireMind.com. Get your autographed copy of our book. And don't forget, May 26th and 27th, here in San Antonio, the Makings of a Millionaire Mind Bootcamp. Go to Eventbrite right now. Get your ticket. Put in the code PROCOMO. The code is BLESSINGS. You're going to get a special $500 discount off your ticket. That's BLESSINGS with an S, because on Eventbrite, the Makings of a Millionaire.com, the bootcamp here in San Antonio, May 26th and 27th. We want to see you here in San Antonio. Until next week with another amazing guest. Thank you again, Sean, for being here with us. We'll see you here again on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. This is Daniel Gomez, and thank you so much for tuning into our show today. We'd love your feedback. Please drop us a comment, and thank you for leaving us a review. Don't forget to subscribe to our show and share this episode with a friend. And my free gift for listening to our show today is a copy of my best-selling book, You Were Born to Fly. To get your free copy, go to DanielGomezInspires.com and get your copy today. That's DanielGomezInspires.com. And to elevate your life and business even more, follow me on social media at Daniel Gomez Inspires on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence.